Hi guys, welcome back to Writing Time with Miss Megan. If you watched yesterday's video, you'll know that I started the picture plan stage of my how-to. I used some of my new how-to helpers like, does anybody notice one on my picture plan? That's right, I used my how-to helpers like writing a title or giving my how-to story a title, numbering the steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, and step 6. And making sure that in this how-to story, I tell all the things I'm going to need, because a good author of a how-to story or a good how-to teacher tells about the materials you'll need as well. So I really focused on that in this story. I decided that because carving a pumpkin has a lot of steps and a lot of materials that will be needed, I broke my picture plan up into boxes. And I had more than just 3 long rectangle boxes. I made 6 small boxes to really break up the steps. Okay. So just like in any other writing, I thought about what I wanted to write about. I wanted to write a how-to on carving a pumpkin. I talked to you guys about the steps of carving a pumpkin. Then I went yesterday and I drew my plan, as well as using a how-to helper. I gave it a title, which is really important when you're teaching somebody how to do something. So now I'm ready for the last stage of writing, which is to add my words. So let's get started. I'm going to use my pictures in order of their number to help me guide my writing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look up at step number 1. This is what happens first. So I know I can write down the word first, because I'm labeling what's going to happen first. First, I'm going to look up and see what my picture is showing me. I have this label here, adult and pumpkin. The first thing that I will need, which is the how-to helper to tell my audience what they'll need, is I'll need an adult. First, always have an adult. Okay, first. I'm telling what's happening first. Always. Finger spaces, have. Have. Finger spaces. Oh, I'm not going to be able to fit my next snap word in here. So in a snap, how do we spell an? Great job. Hopefully you said it. A-N. First, always have an, finger spaces, adult. That's the end of my first step and the end of my sentence, so I'm going to add a period. First, always have an adult. Okay, so I used my first step. I labeled that this was the first step, or I wrote that this was the first step on my writing lines. Now I'm ready to look at step number 2. And that's when we use the word, when we're telling what happens first. After what happens first, we're going to use the word. Does anybody remember? To tell the next step in order, we're going to use that big word next. Next, and I have to figure out what I want to say about this step. I have this label here, knife, and I'm showing arrows cutting off the top. So I think here I want to say, next, use a knife to cut the top. Next, use. And I'm running out of space here, so I'm going to come down to the next line. A, in a snap, how do you spell A? Use my finger spaces. Great job. That was A. Finger spaces, knife. Lots of snap words here. Next, use a knife to, I'm going to use my finger spaces in a snap. Spell to for me. Great job. T-O, chew. Next, use a knife to cut. This is when we can tap out. Get your fingers ready. Cut. K, t, cut. K, t, cut. Next, use a knife to cut, and we're cutting it off. I don't want to say cut the top because I need to be very specific to you guys who are my audience about what needs to happen. The top needs to come off. Next, use a knife to cut off. If you know how to spell off, go ahead and spell it with me while I write it. Off. Next, use a knife to cut off finger spaces, and in a snap, everyone should know how to spell the word the. Cut off the. Great job. Hopefully you said it. Here's a little reminder. The word the is T-H-E, the. Next, use a knife to cut off the finger spaces. Here's a top word. Get ready. Top. T-A-P. Top. Help me say the letter sounds that you hear. T. T. R O P P. Top. Next, use a knife to cut off the top. Period. Great job. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did before, and I'm going to look up above. I'm going to use the picture to guide my words. I've used first, next. Now I need to say what happens next again. So I'm going to start with the word next. And it looks like I'll have just enough room. I'm going to go ahead and add some more lines to my paper. You could always flip your paper over, or you could go ahead and add some more lines too. Another thing that you guys could do is if you have enough room in your box, you could write the words here. First, always have an adult. Next, use a knife to cut off the top. Next, this looks like scooping out the insides with a spoon. So if you have room in your boxes to write those words, that's an okay way to do it. Okay, so I looked at step 3 and decided that based on this picture, the words that I'm going to write that are going to happen next, or the step that's going to happen next, is next, use a spoon to scoop out the insides. Okay, this is easy because I already worked on sounding out the word spoon up here, so I can copy that. And also inside is another big word, but I also wrote it up here in the label, so I'm just going to transfer it or write it, use it from up here to write it down here. Next, use, and in a snap, help me with the word, the snap word a or a. Next, use finger spaces, a, finger spaces. Next, use a spoon. I'm going to use it from up here and copy it down here. Next, use a spoon to, finger spaces, to, and what am I going to do? It looks like the spoon is scooping out the insides, and I know that this step is to scoop out the seeds and all of the stuff inside the pumpkin. I'm going to refer to that or call that insides. Next, use a spoon to scoop. Now, it's really important when I'm spelling words for my audience that I really take my time to listen to the sounds and try to spell it as close to the word as I can, because that helps my audience to better understand the directions. They don't have to spend as much time reading my directions if I really work on spelling the words right. So I'm going to try to hear each sound to write down. Next, use a spoon to scoop. The first sound I hear in the word scoop is S. Sk, k, k, k. The next sound I hear is the sound that the letter C makes. Sk, oo, p, p. The end sound, or the ending sound I hear is P. Oop, scoop. Next, use a spoon to scoop finger spaces out. Finger spaces, the finger spaces. I might not have enough room to write insides down here, so I might have to add another line. I added more lines because that's what I needed for my story. Next, use a spoon to scoop out the insides. And remember, I'm going to look up above to help guide my words from my picture plan. That's the end of my next step, step 3. Okay, I think you guys get the idea. I would continue on to tell next what would happen in my next step, and then again next after that, and then again next after that. That's a lot of words to write at one time, so I think I'm going to take a little break and come back to this writing piece. But now it's your turn. Awesome job today, everybody. We got a lot of words down on our paper for our how-to story. I'm going to go ahead and finish this at a different time. But now it's your turn. Go ahead and see if you can start your own how-to. Remember to use some of those how-to helpers, like adding a title and numbering your steps for your audience. Yours might have as many steps as mine. Mine had about 6 steps. Yours might only have 3 or 4 steps, and that's okay too. The important thing is that we know how to explain or teach to our audience the thing that we want them to do. All right, I can't wait to hear some of your how-to stories that you guys have come up with. See you tomorrow.